Welcome to the Practical Mystic Show, where we bring you simple tips and techniques from around the globe to help practical people deal with extraordinary experiences. And now, your favorite scientist, shaman, and sacred clown, and also the show's host, Janine Bolon.
Welcome to the Practical Mystic Show. This is Janine Bolon, and today I have with me a amazing guest. I just can't say enough about Tracy. After she survived a spinal cord injury that she received from a car accident, she was paralyzed from the waist down. This is an area where she and I have both kind of come together on this because she and I both talk about the times we couldn't walk and were told horrible things. So her life basically shifted from being very technical to very spiritual with that experience. And basically, in order for Tracy to heal, she had to study so many different types of healing modalities. Basically, she was born an empath and with that ability, she could see and hear spirit or source. It depends on your paradigm as to which one is appropriate. Basically, she felt that life had gone full circle. As she began to get in tune with her body, it also began to reopen the precious gift that she had with her third eye. Having regained the ability to walk without assistance, Tracy is now a motivational speaker and internationally known medicine person. She travels the globe teaching, speaking, and being a divine conduit for healing energy work, living her best life, and she loves working with people, bringing knowledge and inspiration everywhere she goes. Thank you so much for being with us today, Tracy Urban.
Thank you so much, Janine. It's my pleasure.
Okay. Yeah, we always have so much fun together. And so one of the things I wanted to share with the audience, you and I, when we connected, we were both dancing. We were both very excited. We were both dancing around, and people thought we were a little crazy as we were dancing to the music. And it was just because you and I both know what it's like not to have that ability. You know, we've both been paralyzed and told we would never walk again. And we both said, enough with that noise. We are so going to make this work. Now, you wrote a book about this, though. You wrote From Paralysis to Purpose. And so talk to us a little bit about your journey and how you use it to inspire others.
You know, it's interesting because I knew after I woke up from the surgery, within probably hours, it was almost like divine intervention where that title had already been gifted to me. And I knew that something good was going to happen from that, even though I definitely did not feel like it at the time. And it's interesting because, you know, prior to my accident, I had been gifted lots of information around the law of attraction, or around just being able to really create what you wanted. And so I had baby stepped towards that journey. And so when I was actually paralyzed, I'm talking like weeks, months after I had really become fascinated and intrigued with the law of attraction. So when I went into the hospital room, I knew immediately that I had special nurses that were not anything I had experienced prior. I had my first PT person come in and did something real curious with her hands. And I whispered to her, "You're a healer, aren't you?" And she just didn't reply. And I accepted it aloud, and I knew, and I told the nurse, I said, I'm going to write a book one day, and it's going to be called From Paralysis to Purpose. So when you hear that title, you remember that it was me paralyzed in this bed with doctors telling me I would never walk again without assistance.
And you and I both said enough with that noise, and you have been unstoppable ever since you crawled out of that bed. You have been a woman on fire. So tell us a little bit about this shamanistic gig and how you got into that.
You know, it's so funny because my daughter was like, "Mom, we're going to find the healing because there's healing all over the world. There's, you know, we've heard of all of these miraculous healers." So she's like, "Mom, don't give up. We're going to find your healer." So she really was the catalyst for this search. And she came across Reiki. And that's where it first started, was she's like, "Mom, have you ever heard of Reiki?" And I was like, "No." She's like, it's some kind of energy. It's healing energy. We got to learn. So then we signed up for a class and I showed up and she did it. And I was like, okay, great. I guess this is for me. So then that just began the next step. And it was so funny because I met some other gals in the class, and one of the gals worked with some energy, angelic energy also. And she's like, let me gift you a read. And then, and I hadn't had an astrology reading for years. I grew up with them. However, I just hadn't felt the need to get one for over a decade easily. And this astrologist man is telling me how I'm going to be working with all these shamans and I'm going to have this awakening and I'm going to really be changed. And I'm laughing because I'm like, oh yeah, born and raised in Denver, never heard of a shaman. Don't even know what that is. Yeah, right. So, I dismiss it. And then sure enough, within that next year after that class, and meeting these different people, I start getting invited to other classes, which introduced me to additional upgrades to the Reiki, which was the sacred blue flame. And then that was the Shakti and Shiva balance. And then, so really all of these energetic, connections just magnetically pulled towards me because I kept giving gratitude for them. So the next modality came, and then I sure enough met shamans, ended up working simultaneously with a male Navajo and a female Navajo, completely unaware that they knew each other. And then after a year of working with them dedicatedly throughout that year, then I find out that they're clan brother and sister. And I'm like, well, of course. So they introduced me to even more of earth kind of, and what I really perceive as the understanding of a shaman came from the Navajo and the indigenous teachers that I was introduced to from recording. I ended up doing the Star Knowledge Conference. You're aware of that conference.
Yeah, that's where we first met. I remember you sitting in your little corner with your video cameras and recording equipment, and that's how you were learning that. But then you ended up doing some DNA testing that had some very interesting results that you were not expecting. You care to share a little bit about that?
Yes, definitely. So I grew up in a Latino environment and was always told that I was Spanish and Native American. And so my sister and I finally took our DNA test from the ancestry.com, and it came back 51% Native American and 30% Spanish, and then a goulash of Asian and African American and some other, little stuff. But I was shocked and amazed that I had such a strong percentage of Native American. But then it also explained why I was so intrigued by the medicine and by the culture, and it felt like home. It really did. From my very first peace pipe ceremony that I was introduced to, that was it. I was done. I'm like, I found a part of me that I had never knew I had in here, in my gut, in my soul, in my instinctual self, because heaven knows I didn't have any of this information from any family member. They just didn't have any information of our ancestry prior to when the grandparents or the great grandparents.
It's amazing. It's amazing how many people are starting to find their heritage, and they find it when they're in their 40s, 50s. And that's one of the things I'm grateful for ancestry.com. If for no other reason, it's starting to deliver answers so that people can start seeking in arenas, and then they harmonize with that. And I watched you over the course of 3 years go from a person who was just seeking, curious, wanting to know more, to you have become quite the leader in your field when it comes to healing. So talk to us a little bit about some of that information that kind of was downloaded into your brain and the type of healing that you do for others now.
Well, and I feel it comes mostly from my desire to be the detective of all things. So first and foremost, that desire to just detect, to really process thoroughly every experience in totality, led me to the energetic field, which it's so funny because I have recently, just in my own head, been thinking I'm like the quantum shaman because most of the shamans that I've worked with and trained under really work with earth medicine in a, I don't want to say an older way, but in a historic way. But what I've married is my knowledge of quantum physics and how energy works. And I've studied how energy evolves and with the ability to be an empath and have this insane need to be a detective, the two helped me to really, really understand that all is energy. Everything comes from, in my belief system, a 4-body system. So between our mental body, our emotional body, our physical body, and our spiritual body, that those energies, when they're married, really, really can expand and they grow in a healthy way. But in the same, if they're not taken care of and they're not nurtured, or if they're divided, which a lot of us show up, and we get like the mental health, for instance, and wonder why our body still goes back into these old patterns, or we deal with some emotional stuff, but then we don't deal with the mental part and wonder why we're unsettled with our decisions and all these different elements. And when I discovered the energy work, what I realized for myself is somehow, some way, the energy swirls together and it works together. So simultaneously, your mental body, your physical body, your spiritual body, and your emotional body are able to synchronize, which is the place where we make our best decisions. Or for me, where you and I have talked about before, it's like the quantum field. It's the place where breath and creation begin and are formed, which is where our body gets our healing from and gets our awareness from of where it's coming from. And so I've studied the mental avenue. I've studied the emotional. I've gone through Western counseling. I've gone through the shamanic stuff. I've gone through soul retrievals. I am somebody who originally was open to everything until I found what vibed with me.
And I think that's really what I enjoy most about listening to you talk about not only your own journey and talk about your book and the healings that you have assisted in with other people. And the fact is, you continually encourage others to find their solution. So you and I talk a lot about the quantum field because I have a love for physics, just like you do. And we were both scientists and nerds, right? Geeks, whatever the cool term. Yeah, right. Whatever the crazy term is now that's acceptable. But we were really the ostracized. To be a nerd or a geek was not sexy for a woman to be during our time. And so we talk about that. And what's lovely is now that we are both shamans in our own perspective, in our own way. What I love about what you do is you're constantly saying to people, well, does this work for you? Is this something that resonates with you? You use those beautiful words to make sure that people are moving along their journey in their way, along their timeline. So I would love for you to talk a little bit more about the downloads that you got about, okay, this is what you are going to do, Tracy. And the way you're going to integrate this is going to look different from anybody else's. And so you will call yourself a quantum shaman. And so do you mind defining that a little bit for those who are like, a quantum who? You're what?
Yes, exactly. So the first download that I accepted was that I wasn't broken and that I am perfect, that I was exactly perfect, exactly the way I was. And I think the thing that stuck out for me the most was realizing that it's other people's judgments and perceptions that led me off of my authentic journey, and then being an empath, I'm perceiving everybody else's energy. So I'm perceiving their thoughts, their emotions, and I'm thinking that they're mine. And I didn't understand how that worked until I studied the energy part. And I said, okay, I really have to understand myself now, because if I'm not broken and if I'm perfect, if I'm exactly uniquely perfect, then I need to figure out how I work, because I don't get it. I don't understand why people tell me I'm volatile. I don't understand why people tell me I'm too much. I don't understand why because I'm feeling like I'm awesome.
I know. I remember when you came running up to me and you were like, oh my gosh, Janine, I finally got it. I am perfect just the way I am. And I remember I looked at you and I said, yes, you are. And this is something that people then start labeling shamans like yourself as selfish, because you set up boundaries and you start talking about, well, one of my favorite things that I remember hearing from you was, if you would never take advice from them, why are you accepting their criticism? You know, it was like, hello, people. You didn't say it quite in those words, but it was around, you were using very Native American terminology and all that, but that's me taking it into Irish Catholicism through my DNA. But that was one of the things. And you hear this all the time. Don't allow other people's opinion of you to define who you are. So how do you know, let's talk to the person who's going through their own journey. How on earth do you do that, Tracy? I mean, seriously, how do you get to a point as an empath, as somebody who can feel the judgment of others, who can feel the displeasure that you are not operating according to their design? How do you dissolve that so that it is a non-issue for yourself? I would love to hear your perception on that.
You know, my true belief system is that will only come when you do the work, when you do the healing around the insecurities, the traumas, and when you understand that 50% of what you're born with is 25% of your mother and father's most thought of, most focused on thing. So if your parents were most focused on stress and fear and lack of money, or wanting to party, or not wanting to get pregnant, or whatever it was, you have to understand that this is a real thing that's part of your DNA system, on top of all of the experiences you're going to have in your life that tell you that you can't trust people, that tell you that people are this, that, and the other. However, when I expanded my belief system, to me, I believe that we all come here to play a role for each other, to help each other grow and learn. And when I started giving myself permission to create narratives around empowerment for myself, instead of the negativity and fear that we're programmed with from society, our parents, our teachers, everyone else, then I was able to hold on to that belief system. And then I started telling myself, I chose this. I chose that I was going to be paralyzed because I chose I was going to be a badass and show people what I could do. I chose that I was going to have these experiences of abuse and neglect and all of these other moments of impact so that I can embody it, gain the wisdom from it, get the keys to the kingdom so that it can be an empowerment, so that I can then finish the circle and teach others how to get their own keys to their own kingdom, because I can almost bet I can connect with almost every experience that people have had out there. And I didn't feel like it was empowerment previously, but now I know those are my badges of honor, and I wear them proudly because they made me the awesome woman that I am right now. I love myself. I love myself now.
And that is always the challenge. That's the rub, is to be able to look into a mirror and be able to look yourself in the eye and say, I love you. I love you. And some people think that's just a very narcissistic way to be. And it's like, it has nothing to do with narcissism. It has to do with releasing and letting go of a lot of negative feedback that you receive from people who were threatened by you, jealous of you, not happy about your behavior. You just weren't marching to their timeline. You weren't marching to their drum, and you were picking your own drum. And how dare you? You're supposed to cater to my drum and my drum beat. And I can't believe that you would sit there and look at yourself in the mirror and say that you love yourself when I'm sitting here in my unhappiness, looking at you in your joy, and I am annoyed. So for those beautiful people out there who are like you and have a high level of empathic nature to them, what is some advice that you can give them on how to start navigating the work? We say that in quotes, the work, that inner work, right? So what are some of those baby steps? Give us some baby steps so that when we do reach out to a shaman or a psychic or some other metaphysical healer, we're already starting on our way and we're looking for new skill sets. So what are some of those baby steps?
I think what I've really learned for me is there's a clear move forward or don't move forward simply by taking 2 minutes to breathe. And if you just ease into a comfortable breath for 2 minutes or more, you'll find yourself in that lovely quantum physics place where the astral plane, where you could get the answers that you want, first off. But mostly, I feel like if you had to sum it up to something quick and easy, ask yourself, does this excite me? Or does it not excite me? Because I guarantee you, if you start allowing yourself to feel your body when you ask any question, you will feel yourself leaning back, getting in a fetal position, or you'll feel yourself leaning forward with excitement or giddiness. And you might even be a little scared, but it's like an amusement park fear where you're like, okay, I'm so excited. And so for me, that's the key, really. When I gave myself permission to just really do what excited me, my whole life changed. Baby steps, and started giving myself permission to accept and allow that not everyone is where I'm at, and not everyone's going to understand it. And I gave myself permission to honor their journey by allowing them to walk their journey without my judgment, without anything from me, which is what I ask of others, because I guess keys are little affirmations. So I started off with, I'm so grateful for like-minded people, or I'm so grateful for trustworthy people. I'm so glad that I'm supported by life. I'm so safe. I mean, they're just keys, because if we don't have these to capture our rabbit holes and to correct our old patterns that aren't beneficial, then we don't have anything supportive, I feel like, to lean into. And when I lean into my joy, or feeling like, does this excite me or no? And I guarantee you will feel your diaphragm like tighten when it's stuff you don't like. It's the keys. Affirmations, right. Positive words, and feel your life. Quit thinking about it.
Quit thinking and start feeling through your life, especially for empaths, especially for people who can walk into a room and they can tell whether the conversation is positive or negative or confrontational. And if it's confrontational, they get uncomfortable and they have to leave. And then as young children, they were told, don't you dare walk away from me. You're going to listen to everything I have to say. And so for empaths that were raised under that kind of influence, it's very important that they start taking care of themselves, in the sense of giving yourself permission, as Tracy says, give yourself permission to walk away. Give yourself permission to leave the room and get into a safe space where you can sit and just breathe. And if you can't find a place like that, start making choices in your life so that you can. I have watched Tracy go from what I like to call a mouse to a giddy woman, dancing, having the time of her life, and people around her are seriously annoyed by her joy factor. She should not be in such joy because doesn't she know how serious this life is that we're living? And it's one of those things where, please remember, my dear empaths and shamans and healers like Tracy, that it is not anyone's job to understand you. Okay? You do not owe any kind of justification for what you're doing, except it makes me happy. So would you care to share a few words, my dear friend, on don't worry about people not understanding you. It's not their job. I would love for you to talk a little bit more about that, because you seriously annoyed many, many people because you only did things that made you happy. And that really was annoying. So share with us a bit on that, dear.
They are. They're so upset. It was so bizarre. But, honestly, just a short revamp. I remember a time, there was a short time before I was paralyzed that I was so unhappy. And there was this gal hired in our office, and she was like, I used to be, right? And then she sat there and she was her sparkling ray of light. And every day she pissed me off so bad. Oh my God. And I was like, finally, after a couple months, and I don't know, I was doing the Christian thing then. So, I had heard a great sermon and I had really thought, oh my gosh, that's how you made people feel, Tracy. That's how you made people feel, because they aren't in that space. And it's so hard. But one of the biggest things you have to understand is our job here as empaths is to shift the dynamic. And most of us, I find a lot of us anyway, are heyokas. So carrying the vibration of an empath, in addition to carrying this strong egoic energy, when you come to this, like for me, for instance, I came to the understanding and knowing that I am here to disrupt the patterns. I'm here to disrupt the patterns. And so if people respond strongly to me, I don't care if they're strongly happy or strongly mad, because what I know for sure is I disrupted their pattern. And no matter what, they might be angry at me until they figure out why they're angry, just like I had to sit in my own unease with this happy gal and get to my own come to Jesus moment, right? And so for me, that was the huge eye opener, that not everybody is going to be where you're at. Everybody has their own unique recipe that creates the person that they are right now in this time and space. And a lot of people aren't as healed as some of us are in other areas. And all of these things, I feel like I tell myself, I'm helping these people, because even if they're not happy, my happy energy is going out on a vibrational level, because I know all is energy, and that which wants me is going to magnetically suck in my beautiful energy. And if not, I'm going to disrupt the pattern, and they're going to think about why I troubled them. And for me, it's always a win-win, because I know that that's what I'm here to do. So if I'm getting a response, I'm doing something right.
I have to totally agree when it comes to stuff like that. So speaking of disrupting the patterns, and one of the things that really intrigued me when you contacted me again was you've got these new projects that you're working on. And boy, did that annoy people, that how dare you do these new projects. Tell us a little bit about your projects and what your intention were. I'd like you to be able to say it this way, where you don't have a lot of people trying to shout you down. And that was the thing. That's why I wanted to invite you onto the show, because they were trying to shout her down and make it sound like this is nothing, this is nothing. So please share with us what you're trying to do.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited about this. You know, it's interesting because after you and I had talked, I had already been really thinking about what does Tracy want and how does she want to show up? Because I know I'm a starter of new things. I can't follow in old concepts. I just can't. That's not what I'm here to do. So for me, I started thinking, what do I want to do? And I was like, I don't want to do workshops like everybody else did workshops. I don't want to do 6-week series. No, that doesn't excite me at all. That feels like work. So it's so funny because I'm fortunate enough to have a group down in Albuquerque, the Collective Frequency, who frequently invites me to go down and speak at their arena. And after this last talk I gave, I really realized, like, it was so clear of all of the ways that I could break down the information that I have to share and teach it in a way that people can walk away with, this is how you're going to change your life. Things like, seriously, because, I've gone to countless motivational things. I've done 50 billion day trading, doing stocks. And because I'm an empath, I go to these darn things and then they're all excited. And then I think I'm excited. And then I sign up and I'm like, I don't even like that. Why did I do that? So from all of my knowledge around the world, I just started going, well, what do I have to share in the Tracy way? Because Tracy's got so much information that I was like, I'm a run-on sentence. I didn't know how to separate my run-on sentence. But I finally am so excited to have separated topics. So now I have several new ones that I just implemented. And one is moving through moments of impact. Because to me, even I realized that I had a moment of impact in my wedding the other day when I saw my wedding dress. And it was a happy day, but it didn't change that it's a moment of impact for me. And another one of my self-help, or I guess motivational talks, is self-healing, the power within. Because if anybody knows how to make a bad situation go to their benefit, I do. So I'm so excited.
I can honestly say that, yes, you know how to take lemons and just a wee bit of sugar, and you can make lemonade out of that puppy and have a little bit of peppermint thrown in there too. So yeah, I definitely can vouch for that. Was there anything specifically? You had done a lot of work with libraries, and I know you were working with several of the Indian centers. And now that we're in 2021, I didn't know if you had a show that you were going to take out on the road next year, or what's cooking with you on that?
Well, right now, one of my fun new shows is, it's kind of it's starting off a Facebook thing. Is I'm as the director of public relations for the Eagle Heart Foundation, I'm super excited. I started the Culture Corner because one of our directives is to share culture, and so I'm doing a monthly show, and it'll be on Zoom, but the link is on Facebook and Instagram and some other forms of social media. But the Culture Corner, I'm super excited to interview different walks of life. For instance, on the 20th, we're going to be, it's National Teen Relationship Awareness Month, in addition to, Black History Month. So of course I'm going to go in the outskirt one. And so I'm interviewing teens of what dating is like in 2020. I have teens in a relationship, I have single teens, and then we're going to close that show with a therapist who's going to talk about good touch, bad touch, yes, no, boundaries. I'm really excited about that. But back to the Indian Center. So in April, we will be having an event at the Indian Center where we will coordinate with the Arapahoe County Library, as it is National Library Month in April. So we are going to be having food and books and giveaways and just a real fun time at the Indian Center, because it's sad that even in the middle of Denver, in the middle of a city, natives are still like neglected in the middle of the city. They don't have the resources and a lot of other opportunities, even in the middle of the city. On the reservation, it's so much worse, but yep. So we're excited to start building partnerships with them, and we make trips down to the Navajo Res and take supplies. We have many, many ongoing programs that we're real excited about to continue the circle of giving and culture sharing mainly is exciting for me, because I love information. I love culture. I love history.
And you love being able to share it, and that is through the Culture Corner on behalf of the Eagle Heart Foundation. So, Tracy, we're going to wrap it up today, and I just wanted to ask, so how do they get a hold of you? You're all over the place. So how do they connect with you if they want to get to know you better, or if they want to hire you or something like that? How does someone get a hold of you?
The best place to reach all my information, you get all my classes, courses, pricing, all the things I do from my website, which is Return to Self Sanctuary. And the 2 is T-O and self as in yourself. Return to selfsanctuary.com. Or you can find me on Facebook. My page is Intuitive Flashes. Those are my 2 primary that have, of course, all my emails and stuff. My email's too long, so I don't want to tell you though. Get on my website and
yeah. I highly recommend everybody get on her website, and then she has a contact me section, and you can figure out how to get a hold of Tracy at that time. So Tracy, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing with us your quantum shamanism, which is the amalgamation of multiple understandings and intuition. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Janine. It was my pleasure.
And this is Janine Bolon with the Practical Mystic Show for today. I just want to remind you, my dear empaths, mystics, psychics, mediums, healers, keep your feet firmly planted on the ground, but don't ever stop reaching for those stars.
This has been the Practical Mystic Show with Janine Bolon. For show notes, resources, and more, visit the8gates.com. Thanks for listening.